Evening, everyone. I'm really sorry. I think we can blame this on Delhi traffic and my, little bit of miscommunication. I actually reached the other CSOI and then I called Ira and they were like, yeah, okay. So sorry about that. Okay, so I, we're in the internet age and I have a couple of questions that I'd written. Last evening, I was reading a lot of what you've written, sir, about your experiences of having been in the Indian bureaucracy, and it was very interesting to come across a lot of the stories that you've written for various newspapers. Okay, so you've written this book called Not Just a Civil Servant, right? In which you've spoken about, well, I was just going through this Indian Express edX interview that you've given, in which you said that you used to document what you did every day, the next day in the morning. Tell us about that.
This habit came to me when I joined the police service. Before I joined the IS, I was in the police. And we used to have very tough days. So I thought, let me try and write down what I faced yesterday. So it is a bit of a relief also, it comes out, whatever is there in your mind, you write down and you can attempt to forget it. One never did though. So got into this habit of jotting down a page every day. That came very handy when I got down to writing this book. Because more than anything else, the chronology was right, the dates were right, the period was right, of course the ideas were built. And got some ideas also as one wrote. And I keep advising all the civil servants, keep a note of what you're doing. It helps. It has helped me.
Very interesting. So were there like a lot of things that would turn scandalous in those notes? Were they to come out
certainly
open?
A lot of scandals, they will be there in my second book.
All right, wonderful. We look forward to reading that. So you've written in one of the interviews that I was reading, you said that we are so fond of policy in India, but we forget about the implementation of those policies. So you've said that the country doesn't need policies anymore, it actually needs action plans. So what are the challenges that you've actually faced when it comes to implementation of policies? And this is a question for both you and Ira, because Ira, I remember having this conversation with you about having a woman boss, right? It's not easy, I believe, to handle a position of power in the Indian civil services for a woman from, coming from that standpoint. So I'd like you to answer from that perspective. And sir, I'd like to ask in general that, where has it been most difficult?
Okay, let me put it slightly differently to answer your question. Having an idea and policy is the easiest thing on earth. You put a problem here, everyone will have a solution to it. The problem in a democracy like ours is for an idea to fructify and sustain, it has to be politically acceptable, socially desirable, technologically feasible, financially viable, administratively doable, and judicially tenable. That's the problem. So until you sorted these out, it will just be an idea. The best, I'll just give you an example. When Dr. Kasturi Rangan came over to meet me as Education Secretary for the new education policy, I told him why you are necessarily taking the trouble. You just write 2-line policy, providing quality education to every child in the country, and the policy is over. Because you will write a long policy, which he did, a very long policy, 400 pages, and we're still debating. I got employment, so many people got employment for just the policy. No one is bothered about implementation. The real problem is implementing. So I told him, make out an action plan for every state, clearly outlining what needs to be done, how it will be done, who will do it, by when it will be done, period, and get it done. Because you can't have a single policy for the entire country. If a teacher doesn't go to school in Kerala, he or she will be lynched. In UP, he takes it as a right not to go to the school. How can you sit and make policies here? We have conducted disaster by creating these policies at the central level. We believe that all wisdom resides in Delhi, which it doesn't. I have travelled to 24 states education secretary and discovered enormous amount of wisdom lying in other states. Please leave them alone, let them do it. Draw broad contours of what you have to do and leave the details to the state. That's how you can implement things.
I think that rings true for not just the administrative services, but a lot of other things within the country. Yeah, Ira, your take.
Actually, I kind of did answer that already. So, as a boss, like I said, the one thing that goes missing is the free flow of information that you get from your staff. and they're very unsure of you, which works in our positive also, because then they don't know if you're going to really take a decision, and throw them out or take, a mark inquiry against them. So they're a little always unsure of where and how you are going to react to their actions, but it also keeps them on their toes, because as a female boss, they know that the sympathy factor that they will try to get from you is restricted to the 2 minutes that they can speak to you in office. Other than that, they don't have access to you. They don't get to manipulate you like that. So that works out in our favor. So I think it's also very individualistic, because there are a lot of officers who are very, very on the kind and forgiving side. There are those who are not. So we can't really say that all women officers have this problem or all male officers have that problem, because there is that boundary that some of us can be persuaded and some of us can't be. So I'll tell you one thing that happens though invariably, and that happens to me, I think in specific, whenever there is some action that we have taken, which is a penal action against the public, people bring the oldest person in their house as well as the most infirm person of their house to my office. They will drag that person who cannot walk and who cannot, even sit, and they'll get the oldest person in the house and they will get them to come and talk to us, which is basically people playing the emotional blackmail game. Like, see, these people exist in my family, now you allow me to do whatever. So for example, we're doing ceilings right now because of polluting units, and everybody knows what a sad situation that happened a few days ago. So because of that, we're trying to control all these things. So whenever we go somewhere and we try to seal a place, they will bring in the oldest person of the household, and yes, it's generally old women. So there'll be 10 women of the family who will come to your office, and they'll be like, we're going to be on the street if you shut down our factory. So it's a lot of emotional blackmail that is attempted on lady officers especially. It doesn't always work, because we also have we are officers, we're not genders. So that doesn't really work, but that's one thing that is attempted every day. Every day.
Interesting. So they just assume that as a lady officer, you'll be more sympathetic to them.
Yes.
Okay. One thing that, as a layman, as somebody who's had a little bit of experience working with the bureaucracy, because I worked with a member of parliament till last year. One thing that occurred to me and has always kind of been a question that's hounded me is, how does a bureaucrat who's educated, deal with certain elements of the ministry, ministers in this case, in your case that I'm referring to, who might not always be as well educated. Has it been difficult, or how difficult has it been at times to make them understand where you're coming from? Or, how do you deal with this? How have you dealt with it in your career?
What life has taught me is that education has nothing to do with wisdom. Absolutely nothing to do with wisdom. Wisdom comes through experience, through desire to learn, which is not equivalent to knowledge. And I have come across ministers who are pretty learned. They may not be as educated as I would be, but that doesn't really matter. It's a question of what value that minister gets to you. The problem is on a different front altogether, and I will again quote a couplet to explain that point. And those who understand Urdu will understand it. मुख्तसर सी जिंदगी के अजब से अफसाने हैं, यहाँ तीर भी चलाने हैं, परिंदे भी बचाने हैं. That's the tragedy. That's the real tragedy. It's not a question of ministers. As a civil servant, I tell my colleagues when I talk to senior, junior, all shapes and sizes, I address them, I tell them, you have to bring in value there. You must understand the political limitation of a politician. And if you are unable to package your idea, which is politically acceptable to him, no matter how brilliant your idea is not. I'll give you an example, which is there in my book also. You all would have seen the chaos that followed the paper leak in CBSE exam a year ago. Chaotic. And as secretary, I was on a personal reason in Dehradun attending to my father, ailing father. And he had to be brought to Delhi, and when this all hell broke loose. So I rang up the minister, I messaged him, I told him, why don't you talk to the media? But he wouldn't listen to me. He wouldn't talk to the media, and it snowballed into a very serious crisis. I remember While traveling in an ambulance with my father, I kept messaging my boss, my minister, but he refused to listen. And since I was literally badgering him, he finally told Anita Karwal, the chairman CBSE, you give a bite to the media. That bite became a real bite. Situation became worse. By the time I reached Delhi and got my father admitted in the hospital, next morning I went and called on the minister. Now here's the trick. Here's an educated minister, a very fine person, but who would relent on this? The first thing he tells me on arrival at his residence is कि अनिल जी, Anita Karwal को तो हटाना पड़ेगा. मैंने हाँ सर क्यों? उसकी क्या गलती है? बोले नहीं सिचुएशन डिफ्यूज हो जाएगी. So I told him सर मैं यूपी से हूँ तो रोज ऐसी आती रहती है. हम बात करके नहीं अनिल जी आप नहीं समझते. अब उसके बाद आप कुछ नहीं जवाब दे सकते. आप नहीं समझते तो क्या बताएंगे आप? Then I thought immediately to packaging my idea in political terms. What did I do? I told him sir अभी तो पूरा जोर CBSE जैसी वो हटेगी लोग आपके पीछे पड़ जाएंगे हटाने के लिए. Now this appealed to him. Now that is the presence of mind you should have. Immediately agreed with my suggestion. And then of course rest is history. We went to the PMO, I addressed the media conference, everything got diffused. And I didn't have to move. The point that I'm trying to make here is, it is not that before you came I was telling everyone, the politician is a politician. You must accept him as that. Don't think everything that the politician says is wrong. He may, as much as I say wrong, he would also say a few things wrong. It's a question of an accommodation without breaking any rule. I don't recall having broken any rule any time. But you have to accommodate the minister. You have to understand his limitation. Don't treat every politician as corrupt. There are bureaucrats corrupt, there are politicians corrupt. Again, before you came, I spoke about nexus of good. How about goodness in an individual combining with goodness of others and creating a vibration which is much more than 1 + 1? So that's what you've got to attempt to do if you want to succeed in life, or for that matter as a civil servant.
Thank you. So I'm going to quote you on this. Again, this is somewhere that I found you've written something that was very interesting to read. So I'm going to read this to all of you. So Mr. Anil Swarup has said in one of his interviews that I don't think there is any service in this world that allows you to thrive irrespective of your competence and integrity. So if you are incompetent and dishonest, you can still thrive. But if you are honest and efficient, you can survive, thrive, make changes and derive satisfaction. So would you like to touch upon that and explain that?
I'd like to stand by it.
Yeah.
If my book starts with a statement that it was because of my father that I became an IAS officer. He wanted me to become an IAS officer. My book ends by saying that if I were to be born again, I'd like to be an IAS officer all over again. Precisely for these reasons. And something which I have not written here in the book is as follows. I tell people, it is the only service in India where if you are efficient, you might become Secretary Government of India. If you are inefficient, you could even become Cabinet Secretary Government of India. Which service gives you that?
So I'd like to hear what Ira has to say to that.
I have little experience to be able to comment on that, honestly.
Too early for that.
Yeah.
So you've been around. You cleared the IS. You topped it in 2015, right? And it has been 4 years since you've been serving as an IS officer, as a civil services officer. So since our panel's name is the challenges of Indian bureaucracy, what is the one challenge that stands apart for you, that you'd like to tell us about?
I think accepting the problems that you can't find a solution to. That's the biggest challenge, because when we all join, we think we will be able to solve things, and it's very disheartening that there are certain issues that you will not have solutions to, and to learn to move on from that and find other things that you can do. I mean, there's always something that you can do, but I think the biggest challenge is letting go of the issues that you will never be able to solve. For example, I'll honestly tell you, I would love to solve the problem of cows and dogs on the road. But I know that during my little span, there is just so much I can do. I will not be able to really solve the problem. So, there are these little issues. We stopped, in MCD, we stopped this policy of giving kiosks to people with disabilities and to widows and all. Now, I get tons of these people to my office every day saying, give me some job. And I know there is nothing I can offer them. I did come up with one solution. We are doing skill training within our office. I gave space to training partners, and I'm getting them to train some of the people. But there will still always be this one lot that is not trainable also. That is not people that I can give jobs that I cannot help. And I know that woman has 8 children. And she's a widow, 8 children, never went to school. How do I help her? So I think that's the biggest challenge. Accepting those.
You know, I would like to quote Reinhard Niebuhr. He's an American monk who made a very seminal sentence, which I tell all my colleagues, junior, senior, everyone. Lord, grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change, courage to change things I can, and the wisdom to understand the difference between the two. This is the essence of our existence. Before I joined the IS, I was in the police. I remember one day a colleague of mine who was undergoing training walked up to me and said, "Boss, raat ko neend nahi aa rahi." I said, "Kya ho gaya?" "Boss, petroleum ke daam bahut बढ़ रहा है." तो मैंने कहा, "यार, पेट्रोलियम दाम से तुमसे क्या लेना देना?" "नहीं बॉस, देश की आर्थिक स्थिति पर कुप्रभाव पड़ रहा है." So people then also were very hassled about. I used to call them Mr. Pareshan. They didn't do anything, but परेशान रहते थे. मैंने कहा, "यार, तुम्हारे रात के ना सोने से पेट्रोलियम के दाम तो ठीक नहीं होंगे. तुम कुछ कर सकते हो क्या?" बोले, "यार, कर तो नहीं सकते." हमने कुछ नहीं कर सकते. डिस्कशन के लिए ठीक है, रात की नींद क्यों आराम कर रहे हो? हाँ यार, सही कह रहे हो. चला गया. 3 महीने बाद फिर आया. फिर कहता, "बॉस, रात को नींद नहीं आ रही." हमने कहा, "क्या हो गया यार? अब तो पेट्रोलियम के दाम तो अपने आप ठीक हो गए बिना तुम्हारे इंटरवेंशन." "नहीं बॉस, इंडिया की पॉपुलेशन बहुत बढ़ रही है." मैंने उससे कहा, "रात को सो जाओ यार, अपने आप ठीक हो जाएगी."
Okay, just coming back to that question of challenges. So you were with the Chief Minister of UP when the Babri Masjid demolition happened. So that's one thing I would like to personally ask you about. How was it dealing with that situation at hand, being there, seeing what was going on? And in case that is the biggest challenge, or any other challenge that you'd like to tell us about in your entire career spanning 38 years, when has it been? What is the one thing, the one challenge?
I cannot pick on a challenge because I soon understood that दिखाई कम दिया करते हैं बुनियाद के पत्थर, जमीन में दब गए जो इमारत उन्हीं पे कायम है. So what you have to do is do your work in your own small way. You will never. But there are huge challenges that you got, and it's like apples and oranges. You can't compare the challenges. But gradually one started thriving on those challenges. Because I remember when I was posted as school secretary, everything had gone wrong. I mean, all scams had broken. I didn't know much about the sector, so I called up a friend of mine and I asked him, "यार, ये sector कैसा है?" So instead of answering my question, he asked me a question. Gangs of Wasseypur देखी है क्या? हो गया इंतजाम. मुझे पता लग गया कैसा है sector. So when I walked into that room of Secretary Government of India, it was like walking to a graveyard. CBI was chasing files, officers, everyone's running, his helter-skelter. Things were terrible. Now how do I look at it? I looked at it in the following manner. I said, things are so bad that they won't become worse. Anything that is going to happen will be an improvement and I can walk away with that credit. But God was very kind. I was, always throughout my career, I had such fantastic teams, absolutely amazing, that they did all the walking and I did all the talking. They did all the hard work and I walked away with all the credit. So that's how life is. So there were challenges, but the bigger the challenge, the bigger the excitement. Initially, of course, in the initial few years, I used to think, "Ye kaise hoga?" In coal ministry, at some point in time, around this round table which I had in my room, we said, "Give us the Kashmir problem, we just might find a solution to that problem." That was the positive energy. That's why when I sit with Ira, she gives me a lot of energy. She is looking at positive every damn thing. That's remarkable. At her age, seniority, I didn't have that positivity. I developed over a period of time, but it's remarkable to see. I only pray to God that she continues in a positive frame of mind. She continues to inspire many other civil servants and other people around her.
You didn't tell us about the Babri Masjid. Sorry.
On Babri Masjid, very interestingly, I was the only person with Mr. Kalyan Singh at his residence. We weren't in Ayodhya. I remember that's a chapter of my book and very controversial chapter of my book. Because I remember as I walked into that room, Mr. Kalyan Singh was sitting alone. Normally Chief Minister, I had never seen him alone. He was sitting alone in a very pensive mood. Very pensive. He normally very cheerful, nice chap. He's very concerned. And then I heard a conversation that he had with Bhairav Shekhawat. That is when the news came that the loans have come down. And Mr. Kalyan Singh was livid with Mr. Bhairav. Then a phone call with Mr. Advani. He was livid. You know what was he saying? He said, मैंने आप लोगों को मना किया था कि इतने लोगों को इकट्ठा मत कीजिए यहाँ. Mr. Kalyan Singh was totally against demolition of Babri Masjid. And I say it with all the conviction, all the experience, all the first-hand information that I had. He had his own solution to the problem. And very interestingly, the solution that the Supreme Court has provided now was actually provided by Kalyan Singh in 1991. When the masjid came down, before that, he was working toward that solution. I was privy to some of the discussions with some of the groups of the minority community, where he was suggesting to them, मैं आपको इतनी अच्छी जगह दूंगा, जहां इससे बढ़िया मस्जिद बनाइए, क्योंकि इस मस्जिद में तो आप नमाज भी नहीं पढ़ते. ये तो आपके डेफिनेशन के हिसाब से मस्जिद है भी नहीं. जहां 12 साल नमाज नहीं पढ़ी गई, वो तो मस्जिद के डेफिनेशन में आती नहीं है. मैं आपको एक भव्य मस्जिद बनाइए, मैं जगह दूंगा. And you know, some people were coming around. Imagine it took this country 28 years to come to the solution which Kalyan Singh was offering. That's what my book says. Because people refuse to believe that Kalyan Singh did not have other solution. He had other solution in mind. And look at it intuitively and otherwise. Why would a chief minister want to drown his own government in this? I mean, he would have known that if this comes down, his government will go. And what fabulous work he was doing. So my argument is totally different. My facts are totally different from what is generally known. But that was an amazing day for me. I had never seen him so tense. And the final act of his was quite remarkable. He asked me to get a piece of paper. I got a piece of paper. In his handwriting, he wrote that he wants to take the entire responsibility of what has happened. No officer and nobody else should be held responsible. Contrast this with what was done later on by Dr. Manmohan Singh when he said that I was misled into taking decision poll scams. So you compare this. And I've written that in my... No holds barred is this book. Whatever I had to say, I've said it, irrespective of the consequences.
Thank you. I think that you need to get somewhere, so we will wind up the panel. Sorry for being late, but it was very interesting having this conversation with both Ira, who's a good friend, and you, Mr. Swarup. It was a real pleasure. I look forward to actually reading the book. I hope I'm getting a copy. Yeah. All right. Thank you all so much for being such a wonderful audience.
Thank you. Please stay on the stage. May I please call upon Mr. Satya Gupta, Chairman of Blue Town India and South Asia, to come.
Mr. R.K. Mishra, sir, who is from Sound Advisors. We will showcase the book.
Mr. Sir, thank you very much. Sir. Mr. Anil Swarup is being felicitated by Mr. Satya Gupta.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
भाई ग्रुप बैन कर दो.
Next to be felicitated, Ms. Ira Singhal. And finally, Ms. Sethi.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank
All
you.
the best, Tina. Take care.
थैंक यू साहब, बहुत बढ़िया आपसे मिलेंगे। आई लुक फॉरवर्ड